I'm with Aryah Batt, co-founder and CEO of Precise Bio, and we're talking about 3D printing corneas. Now, Aryah, tell us about this amazing technology.
So essentially, what we have at Precise is really a platform technology. When I mean a platform technology, we're talking about the cell biology, we're talking about the structural material of the tissue. At the end of the day, we print the tissue with a 3D printer, but there's many technologies that have come together even before we reach the printing. So, for example, with the cornea, we use human cells, we use natural materials, and then it takes us around 2 minutes to print a cornea, where this cornea mimics the anatomical structure and the materials of the natural tissue. So, when we fabricate the tissue in the lab, we fabricate a human natural tissue, and this is what we're essentially transplanting in the patient's eye.
So, is this restoring sight to people who are like 100% blind?
So currently, I mean, yes. And our first patient that we just transplanted, she was what is defined legally blind. I mean, in a non-professional way, I would say if you asked her to tell you how many fingers you're raising, she wouldn't be able to say if it's two or three or four fingers. And now this young lady, she sits in a restaurant and she could read the menu.
Wow, it's amazing. So, does it restore total blindness?
Yes. So, of course, blindness comes from various reasons. We're talking about is corneal blindness. The first product that we have transplanted is a cornea, and this patient had corneal blindness, total blindness. You know, she could see light and dark, but she couldn't read, and we restored her eyesight. We have other products that are addressing other types of blindness. For example, we have a retina tissue. There is a disease that's called AMD, age-related macular degeneration. 1 out of 40 people in the Western world have it over the age of 55. And we hope also that other types of blindness we will be able to restore in the future based on our same technology. Now we transplanted the cornea, but in the future we'll be able to transplant the retina in a patient also and other parts of the eye.
So, have you just done one operation so far?
So far, it's going as expected. There are ups and downs, as in any natural tissue also. Today, the solution for corneal blindness is to take a tissue from a cadaver and transplant it. Also there's ups and downs, and our tissue is acting very similar to the natural tissue. So it's moving forward, making progress as expected. We're still following the patient. She's very happy because she can read and she can see, but we still have to follow and make sure that over time, and our first significant endpoint is 6 months. That's what we define together with regulatory authorities, with the FDA, with Israeli regulatory authority. Primary endpoint is 6 months from the transplantation.
Did you expect this to work first time?
Actually, we built it so it will work. We manufacture it, we designed it, we developed it so it will work. Of course, these things, it's biology. Not everything works exactly as you expect, but we made the tissue as close as possible to the natural tissue so it will work. So we anticipated that it will work, and it's acting as we expected.
Tell us a bit about this first person who's received this technology.
Okay, so the lady that received the cornea, she had another procedure about 2 years ago, and in that procedure, her cornea was damaged. And she was waiting in line. She was waiting in line for almost a year, and she would probably wait at least another half a year to receive a cornea. And here, the fact that we have a cornea, that we can produce a cornea whenever we want, go into the production line. When you want to print that piece of paper, you do Control P, and out comes a piece of printed paper. We do Control P, and 2 minutes later, a cornea comes out. So essentially, she was waiting in line to receive a natural cornea. And the fact that we can give her whenever we want, supply on demand, is really amazing. And she was very enthusiastic about receiving this. She calls the doctor every day to report on her eyesight, and she is very, very happy that she received this cornea.
Wow. We hear a lot about 3D printing. What is 3D printing?
Well, 3D printing is, and we all know there are many 3D printers out there that you can go into any store and buy one. When you print any object, a three-dimensional object, so you print it layer by layer and you build it up. And that's the way any object is printed. If you want to print cubes, so you do square layers one on top of the other. If you want to print a ball, then you start with a very small circle and then add larger and larger circles until you have the full volumetric object. And when we talk about printing of a tissue, so we do it the same way. Our tissues in the body are comprised from cells. We know the anatomical structure. We load the anatomical structure into our printer. Instead of printing plastics or metals, we print human cells and natural materials. So we're really building the tissue layer by layer, one layer after another, and then they connect. And after a maturing phase, essentially, we have a matured and functioning.
So Precise Bio has developed this technology, and you also perform the transplant as well.
So here we work together with our clinicians. We have leading clinicians around the world that are very enthusiastic about the tissue. For example, it's much easier to transplant than a cadaver tissue. So they're very happy with that. But if I would step back and essentially to bring the tissue at the end of the day to the clinician's hands, we go through many, many disciplines. We have cell biology, biomaterials, a lot of engineering. The printer was developed by Precise. We had to develop quality control system, a production line. We have our quality people, our regulatory people. In order to bring the tissue into a patient, we have to go through a regulatory process. So it's really a multidisciplinary approach where we start with the biology and the biomaterials and we end with the clinicians. And the clinicians are part of the design. They, at the end of the day, they tell us what the patient needs, and we design the tissue according to the clinician's directions, what they would like to see in a future tissue.
How long did this transplant take?
The transplant itself is less than an hour, where it has various stages. It has first removing the damaged cells that are in the eye. That takes around a half an hour, or it can be up to 40 minutes. The transplant itself is minutes. After we remove the damaged cells and we're ready to put in the new tissue, it's really an issue of minutes. If we compare it to a cadaver, so I would say we're saving between 20 and 40 minutes in the operation room for every transplant.
Has anybody done anything like this before?
So there are various solutions for corneal blindness. There are various solutions that you inject cells into the eye. There are solutions that are non-natural corneas. For example, you cut out the natural cornea and you put in a piece of polymer or plastic. But the uniqueness of our tissue, I think it's nobody is there competing at this stage with us, where we have a natural human cell-based cornea, natural materials. We're unique from that perspective.
Are you hoping to expand this all around the world? And will this technology change the world?
So what happened in this transplant, I think, is really it's not just transplanting a cornea. It's really proving to the world that in a non-professional way, I would say that we can fabricate spare parts for the body. We can fabricate biological, natural spare parts, and it won't be just the cornea. It will be in various areas. In the past, we printed cardiac tissue, we printed liver cells. So this platform that Precise developed essentially will not just be for corneas. It will be for many, many other indications, many, many other tissues in the body. And what we have done a few weeks ago here in Israel, essentially, it's just opening up that door. It's proving to the world that it's not science fiction, that you can biofabricate a tissue, transplant it, and it will function. And this is really the revolution.
Now, you're a co-founder of Precise Bio. When was the company started, and what other things do you do?
The company was founded in 2015, 10 years ago. I founded the company with two scientists that are leaders in the field of regenerative medicine and tissue engineering. Dr. Anthony Atalaf, the director of the Wake Forest Institute of Regenerative Medicine, a scientist that was the first one to transplant an engineered organ in a patient. He transplanted a bladder in a kid over 25 years ago. And together with Professor Shai Soker, professor in molecular biology, was a professor at Harvard and also now at the Wake Forest Institute of Regenerative Medicine. And we established Precise together, where really our vision was to bring these technologies to the patients, bring tissues to replace cadaver tissues in some cases, or in cases where there's not a solution for unmet need, then if we can replace a damaged tissue with a brand new tissue that we fabricate in the lab, essentially we can solve that therapeutic need. So it was a journey, a long journey of 10 years that started with the development of the cells and the natural materials and ended in a production line that you can supply on demand tissues. And at the end of the day, we brought these tissues to the hands of the clinicians.
Is this Israel being a light to the nations?
Well, if you look at Israel technology, and I think it's definitely in the healthcare, we have been leading many, many technologies, if it's medical devices and other technologies related to healthcare. There's robotic surgery that is really moving forward and is led by Israeli companies. So we are bringing light, not just, turning on the light, but, retrieving eyesight is bringing light to people. And this is not just the light itself, but if we look forward, we will be bringing healthcare today. It's tissues that are improving life quality, but in the future also, we will be bringing the life-saving tissues. And this is really light to the whole world.
Are blind people excited about this news?
So since we published the fact that we transplanted, I think that we get tens of calls a day to the company. When can we get from blind people that when can we get a tissue?
Yeah.
So we're not there yet. We still have to go through the phase one and the phase two and three studies, but a few years forward, it will be commercial available.
Wow. What's your website for people who'd like to know more about what you're doing?
Yes, so it's very technology. There's a lot of technology behind it. And, on the website, you'll see our pipeline of products and you'll see most of our activity in the field of ophthalmology. But in the future, we will be active in cardiology and orthopedics and other fields. So on our website, you'll be able to find many of our lectures and some information about our products. But it's really we're saying that it's very simple to print a tissue, but there's a lot of technology behind that, and it's a very professional and very professional team. Our teams are experts in biology and biomaterials, in engineering, software, mechanics, optics, and it's a complicated system where one of our uniquenesses here is really to bring all of these technologies together that end up in the patient's eye.
Wow. Wow. It sounds an amazing work you're doing. Well, Aryah, thank you very much for sharing today.
It was my pleasure, and we're looking forward to bring these technologies to the benefit of people. Retrieving eyesight is a dream that we made it come true. We still have to complete the commercialization of it, but it will happen. And it's starting with eyesight, and it will continue with many, many additional products, indications, and tissues that will help people around the world.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing.